What's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel. I am DJ, aka Token Black Guy. And for the first time, hit that like button, subscribe button. We're on the road to 800 subscribers. We are like 755. So if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. So I figured we'll do get our knowledge of Ahsoka before the season starts this week. Like I said, I am I guess I'd say slightly average Star Wars fan, like slightly above average. I've dived more into it the past couple years. I don't know all the backstories of every character and all the little Easter eggs and all that stuff and everything, but I've enjoyed the movies, enjoyed the characters. I've finished Clone Wars. I've dived into Rebels, but haven't finished Rebels. So I'm not, I'm watching as I go. So if I get some spoilers in this, I'm not surprised. But this is gonna be to get ready for Ahsoka this week. Rebels season 1 breakdown, all the Star Wars Ahsoka Easter eggs you missed. So have a better knowledge going to Ahsoka to pick out things, understand more of the show. I'm pretty sure they're gonna reference a lot of stuff from Rebels. But yeah, let's check it out. Here we go.
Welcome
Mr. Eric Voss, as usual.
Voss, and this is a breakdown of Star Wars Rebels Season 1. Among
go.
Ahsoka, The Mandalorian, and the various other Star Wars live-action titles, they are all essentially, thanks to Dave Filoni, live-action spin-offs of Rebels. So whether you've seen this show or not, we are doing this 4-part Rebels rewatch to catch everyone up on the Easter eggs, the plot points, the unanswered questions from this series, like how does Chopper sleep at night? And by the end of this breakdown, you'll be able to go into shows like Ahsoka with a cheat sheet of what you really need to know. Also, please subscribe to the Break Room channel for our upcoming Ahsoka After Show, Wookiee Leaks. Let's get started with Season 1, Episode 1 and 2, Spark of the Rebellion, Parts 1 and 2. This 2-part series premiere opens on the triangular hulls of 3 Imperial Star Destroyers, looking like sharp teeth of the jaws of a beast, chomping down on the stars, devouring the galaxy. George Lucas's opening shot for A New Hope was also a Star Destroyer bearing down on us, and that's where this Rebel series wants to put us.
There aren't most movies like that.
Earl Jones returns to voice Darth Vader, whose mask we see in a massive screen.
And I read that was him.
Hologram.
The Jedi Knights are all but destroyed.
He's just like a little someone acting like him.
Task is not complete, Inquisitor.
And the bald head positioned right in Vader's breathing vent, breathing down on his shoulders and his head, is that of the Inquisitor, or the Grand Inquisitor, voiced by Jason Isaacs. The Utapawan race seen in Revenge of the Sith. In the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, he was played by Rupert Friend, but they really didn't do enough to stretch out his face.
Yeah.
Go on to be known as the Grand Inquisitor. At first, in this Rebels series, the character was known as just the Inquisitor. Originally, Rebels wasn't going to have Darth Vader at all, but they decided to add this prologue and the epilogue of the series for context and Star Wars-ness. Lucasfilm released Rebels in October 2014 on Disney XD after
service,
Clone Wars
basically
was discontinued on the Cartoon Network in 2013 with an unfinished season 6 arc moved to Netflix. Rebels would center around all new characters and be set in 5 BBY, that's 5 years before A New Hope, and about 14 years after Revenge of the Sith. Over the course of this series, it would progress.
I'm always like curious. I'm always mixed up on the timeline when things are.
The hero, really, of this series, voiced by Taylor Gray, looks out from a tower on the Outer Rim world of Lothal. This backdrop is kind of Ezra's binary sunset. It returns throughout the series, specifically in the final shot of the series, and we'll see it in the Ahsoka series. And Ahsoka, the character, will be played by Iman Esfandi. Ezra's view of the Star Destroyer blasts the Imperial March. Yes, really all of John Williams' themes just come back throughout this series, so I'm not going to be pointing out every instance, nor will I point out like every species, every ship, every droid, every little bit.
I just need a quick understanding breakdown, Mr. Voss. That's all I need.
Major stuff that you need to know for the other titles and the really, really cool Easter eggs that I don't really think anyone else has pointed out before. So Lothal is currently under Imperial occupation, and so we see all over the place propaganda like this mural with Orbesh text. Support your empire, build TIE fighters, the latest in defense against threats to peace. Sign off. Fleet systems, bringing jobs and prosperity to Lothal. This is really what Lothal is currently used for by the Empire. Signar Fleet Systems, the company that builds TIE fighters. Later, Thrawn will use Lothal, and had he been successful in that operation, the Empire might not have lost this civil war. Ezra, who's Force sensitive, senses his future master, Kanan Jarrus, voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr.
I forgot Freddie Prinze was in that show.
That was weird.
Yeah, I love this sound effect of Ezra sensing the Force, and it's presented as kind of a force of nature here, almost like a whale call. In the hyperspace whales, the Purrgil will play a very important role in Ezra's destiny, and will appear in the Ahsoka series. Kanan Jarrus is the alias of the former Jedi Caleb Doom, apprentice to Depa Billaba, and their tragic Order 66 moment was depicted in the very first episode of the Bad Batch series. Also in his crew,
I haven't watched Bad Batch, so
is Zeb Aurelios, the Lasat voiced by Steve Bloom, who also showed up in live action with incredible VFX in The Mandalorian Mandalorian Season 3, and the Mandalorian character Sabine Wren, voiced in this series by Tia Sircar, who is played in Ahsoka by Natasha Louis Bordizzo. Sabine is quite the artist. Her armor features the Mandalorian starboard symbol, the Orbesh number 5 for her code name being Spectre 5, and a Night Owl style helmet, the same kind of style worn by Bo-Katan. Ezra interrupts these rebels' mission to steal blasters, leading to this chase through the Lothal streets and down the highway. They get scooped up by the Ghost, a VCX 100 light freighter captained by Twi'lek Hera Syndulla, voiced by Vanessa Marshall in this show and played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead in Ahsoka, and their astromech droid is Chopper, voiced by Dave Filoni himself. And as we'll see in pretty much every episode of the series, Chopper is just kind of a jerk. He's always picking fights and committing more crimes. Ezra finds a lightsaber and Jedi holocron that has a message to all Jedi from Obi-Wan Kenobi right after the Purge, and Obi-Wan here is voiced by James Arnold Taylor, doing a pretty solid impression of Ewan McGregor.
This is Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. I regret to report that both our Jedi Order and the Republic have fallen.
But it's interesting how in this two-part premiere, we only hear the first half of it here. We don't get the full message of hope just yet. Now these blasters are sold to crime lord Vizago in exchange for food and info about Wookiee prisoners. The Ghost crew tries to pull the old Wookiee prisoner con that Han and Chewie pulled in A New Hope, except Kanan and Sabine pretend that Zeb is a rare hairless Wookiee.
Haven't you ever seen a rare hairless Wookiee?
It's all a trap, though,
funny.
and Ezra gets captured by Agent Callus, voiced by the amazing actor David Oyelowo. The crew goes back for Ezra, who had overheard where the Wookiee prisoners are, because he's such a crafty thief and voice impersonator on stolen radio comms. So the Wookiees are being sent into slave labor in the spice mines on the planet Kessel, of Kessel Run fame, and would be shown a few years later in live action in the Solo film. They free these Wookiees and reveals his Jedi skills. We get a little Wilhelm scream when Ezra rescues a Wookiee kid, and Kanan offers to train Ezra in the ways of the Force, and we hear the rest of Obi-Wan's hopeful message, and how it's not just a warning, it's a message of hope and advice on how to move forward from this.
Our future is uncertain.
Uncertain. Yeah, that's a really good impression of him.
Our friendships, and in time, a new hope.
I don't remember where I left off at watching Rebels.
It's the name of the movie. Okay, episode 3.
I think I just made it into season 2.
Ion disruptors from Minister Maketh Tua. Now, Tua is a character that appears in the Thrawn novel and in a few Star Wars comics. R2D2 and C3.
Yeah, I've never read comics or books, so
an attempt to win over
that's
Star
where
Wars
my
fans
knowledge is
often
like
plugged in random faces
0.
from the OT. But my favorite cameo here is a droid piloting this Gorel transport, RX-24, voiced by the wonderful Paul Rubens, who we
R.I.P.
I am sorry, sir.
R.I.P. Mr. Pee Wee Herman himself.
Rubens is an important voice to Star Wars history. He provided the voice of R3X or Rex from the original Star Tours ride at Disney.
Oh, wow.
And R3X now serves as a DJ at Oga's Cantina in Galaxy's Edge. 3PO and R2 translate for Tua, and they end up on board the Ghost. We learn the Ion disruptors are the weapons that wiped out most of Zeb's people, the Lasat. So he's wary about this deal, but Callus shows up during their meeting with Vizago and taunts Zeb with a bow rifle that he says he took off a Lasat, and he says that he's the one who gave the order to use those Ion disruptors on them all, and Zeb loses it. And while Zeb's about to lose his fight, Ezra force pushes Callus away from Zeb, and the crew returns the protocol and astromech droids to their owner, Senator Bail Organa. The final shot of this episode mirrors Leia recording her message to Obi-Wan on R2 in A New Hope. Okay, episode 4, Fighter Flight. Ezra and Zeb, after some squabbling, go on a
episodes are season 1.
Run. The Melu Run fruit come back throughout live-action Star Wars titles.
Oh, wow.
He loves these, and you can actually get a drink based on the Melu Run at Galaxy's Edge. It's so good. Yeah,
never been a Galaxy's Edge.
All about
probably
fruit.
won't.
Fruit
It's too
really
expensive.
is one of the simple joys of being a rebel, folks.
I want
the
to, though.
list that Hera gives them includes science dip, space waffles, large bag, writing cam, and dill pickles. Ezra runs into
Dill
family friend
pickles.
Morad Sumar, and Zeb and Ezra find a crate of Melu Run, and Ezra gets caught stealing one of them. They escape in a TIE fighter, while Hera and Kanan hang out back on the Ghost playing holo chess. Zeb and Ezra chase down the prisoner convoy in the TIE.
That's not the tie you're looking for.
Yeah, Zeb's trying to pull off some classic Jedi mind tricks the way Ezra has been scratching the surface of using the Force these first 4 episodes. This Imperial troop transport we see is actually based on a classic Star Wars toy.
Interesting.
Where the people kind of plug into the sides of it. And we see how Sabine graffitied a mural of Zeb and Ezra and Chopper. She is such a talented artist, something that will come back in the final scene of the series. Throughout the show, you do get shots of her room that includes characters that look a lot like Cad Bane.
Oh, Cad Bane
from Clone Wars. Episode 5, Rise of the Old Masters. So this is an important episode. Please watch this one if you can. It's really good.
All right, noted. Duly noted.
Methods that Yoda uses with Luke Skywalker in Empire. The one-armed handstand and this line.
Do or do not. There is no try.
What does that even mean?
So these Yoda anecdotes will be important to Ezra since he later communes with the Jedi Master, and this episode explores really the deeper meaning of that quote from Empire, which I think often goes misunderstood. Because I think people
I'll
think
add
that
to my
if you
rewatch
can't
list.
actually accomplish something, you shouldn't even try. That's not really what it means. It really means begin with the end in mind, see your target, actualize it, believe in yourself, and set your target on the destination. Don't prematurely commit yourself to a half measure. Ezra nearly falls to his freaking death from this training, and Gucci Machine Chopper fires another bottle at Ezra and lands on a Lothcat. And these fuzzballs are beloved creatures that Filoni loves to bring back in live action. I'm sure we're gonna see quite a few Lothcats in Ahsoka. The Imperial News Channel gets hijacked by the anti-Empire senator in exile Travis, voiced by Brent Spiner from Star Trek The Next Generation. Spy Master Luminara Unduli is apparently imprisoned in the Spire. Now, Luminara Unduli first appeared in Attack of the Clones, and she showed up in Clone Wars as the master of Barriss Offee, the young Jedi who framed Ahsoka Tano for the bombing of the Jedi Temple, which led to Ahsoka leaving the Jedi Order. The Spire, meanwhile, is where Maul was actually held in the comic Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir, where he was imprisoned by Darth Sidious in the part of the timeline that's set after Clone Wars Season 5. Kanan and Ezra make it to Unduli's cell and realize that it's not actually her, it's a corpse, and the Grand Inquisitor is using her essence to lure in the Jedi. As Kanan and the Inquisitor duel, the Inquisitor taunts him.
In close quarter fighting, Bilaba's emphasis was always on Form 3, which you favor to a ridiculous degree. Clearly, you were a poor student.
Now, this Inquisitor used to be a Jedi Temple guard, and he was there for the trials of Ahsoka and Barriss in that Clone Wars arc. And he mentions Form 3, there are 7 total forms of lightsaber combat, and Form 3 is the most offensive one. And this is also the first time we see the Inquisitor's rotating double-bladed lightsaber put to use. Filoni introduced these as kind of a step up from Maul's double-sided saber in Phantom Menace. This one spins. They escape with the help of Hera and some horny Tibbities. The Tibbities got their name from the abbreviation TBD, or to be determined. The production team was using TBD as a placeholder name, and they decided to just go with it.
That's
which
pretty
is kind
funny.
of how a lot of stuff in Star Wars works. Kanan discovers a new understanding of Yoda's quote.
I'm not gonna try to teach you anymore. If all I do is try, that means I don't truly believe I can succeed. So from now on, I will teach you. Look, I may fail.
I do remember that episode.
There is no try.
So this wisdom is as much for the teacher as it is for the student. As Yoda will later explain in The Last Jedi, which I think is my favorite quote from the sequel trilogy.
Failure also. Yes, failure most of all.
He's a great teacher.
The greatest teacher. Failure is.
That is true.
We are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters.
So really, Yoda's wisdom is the rise of the old masters in this episode's title.
Gotcha.
Episode 6, Breaking Ranks, Ezra goes undercover at an Imperial Academy, posing as a cadet named Dev Morgan to steal a key card to stop a shipment of Kyber crystals, which power lightsabers and eventually power the Death Star, which is why at the end of this episode, the transport explodes, releasing a wild green shockwave.
Just like
Ezra
Death
and
Star.
the other cadets are tested using this well. Its design is inspired by Clone Wars episodes with the Clone Troopers, Clone Cadets, and the Box. The Clone Troopers have all since been decommissioned, excluding the Bad Batch, some of whom are still alive at this point in the timeline, as well as Rex, whom we'll meet in future seasons of Rebels, and I guess that homeless one that Obi-Wan ran into in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, but they're replaced with Imperial recruits in the form of stormtroopers, and this is how they're trained. Ezra gets Callus's key card to the Ghost crew, but he stays behind to break out his friends, Jai Kell and Zara Leonis, who's actually also undercover trying to find his sister Dara, who went missing from the Academy. The Grand Inquisitor is coming the next day to take custody of Ezra and Jai, and the three fight their way out of the Academy in an ATS team.
Don't remember the episode at all.
Crew, but Zara decides to stay behind to continue the search for his sister, and he faces the Grand Inquisitor's questioning. Episode 7, Out of Darkness. So the Phantom, which is a small ship attached to the Ghost, gets damaged in this episode. Zeb fails to notice a leak. So Hera and Sabine take the Phantom to collect supplies from a contact named Fulcrum on Fort Anaxis, which is an abandoned asteroid base, and Anaxis will later be revisited in the Bad Batch arc of Clone Wars Season 7, which is set years before this when the base was still active during the Clone Wars fight against a droid army, the Separatists. Hera and Sabine find Fulcrum's crates marked with a Fulcrum symbol, which, yes, does look a bit like a certain Togruta's head. More on that later, of course. But Anaxis is infested with Fearnox, which are deadly and sunlight averse. With an asteroid about to block out the sun and the Phantom out of fuel, Hera and Sabine have to use the explosive Rhydonium to hold them off. Rhydonium was actually seen in the Season 5 Abafar episodes of Clone Wars. In this episode, we also finally get to see some space waffles, which were on Hera's shopping list in Episode 4. Galaxy's Edge needs these on the menu. Okay, Episode 8, Empire Day. Kanan trains Ezra to use the
Episode 7 wasn't that important.
Ezra can't focus because it's Empire Day, celebrating the founding of the Empire 15 years ago. We also find out that it's the same day as Ezra's birthday. He turned 15. He was born the day the Empire was founded. And 8 years ago is when the Empire took his parents, Ephraim and Mira. He hasn't seen them since. He's an orphan, kind of like Aladdin. We see the Imperial holonet broadcast, which I am fascinated by. We get a look at Palpatine, and this image in the broadcast is from his younger days, before he became, you know, a hunched raisin that shot lightning, showing how really Imperial propaganda
stayed out the sun too long.
His true appearance. I like the Orabesh ticker here. It translates to residents attacked by herd of rabid lothcats, tragedy at Boo Boo Barn. Also, part of propaganda is the music on this broadcast, which also we hear during the parade, an upbeat version of the Imperial March by composer Kevin Kleiner. So
this is celebrating
in universe for the characters. We also heard this Imperial propaganda music in Solo. The Ghost crew throw grenades that turn out to be fireworks diversions. Later, when the 2 Death Stars blow up in the original timeline, those explosions are kind of celebrated as literal fireworks in the sky. Tua and Oresco show off the new Sinar TIE Advance V1. The rebels blow it up. Ezra takes them to his old house where they find Sibo, that's the missing Rodian of this episode. The Empire put tech in his head. It's given him access to schematics, battle plans, including AT-ATs or
they put tech in his head.
Interceptors, and Sabine mentions an encrypted file talking about a 5-year plan for Outer Rim planets, which might refer to Project Stardust. That's a plan to build the Death Star, because about 5 years from now is when that will go online. They get Sibo off the planet, and he reveals he knows what happens to Ezra's parents, to be continued, and we pick up from there at episode 9, Gathering Forces. When TIE fighters are now chasing the Ghost, and Sibo tells Ezra that troopers took his parents away, he was too afraid to stop them or to help raise Ezra, and Ezra is pissed. The Inquisitor
I'll be pissed too.
XX-23 S-Thread tracker to the Phantom right before the Ghost jumps to hyperspace. The S-Thread tracker was first introduced in Kraken's Rebel Field Guide, which is a 1991 Star Wars RPG guidebook. Sibo knows there's a tracker on board though, and Kanan and Ezra detach the Phantom mid-hyperspace to misdirect the Inquisitor. And they take the Phantom to an Axis, where Ezra tries to connect with the Fearnox using the Force, an animal taming ability that Star Wars titles have been exploring more and more, like Grogu with the Rancor. Ezra admits that he's not afraid of the Fearnox, he's afraid of not knowing the truth about his parents. So he forgives Sibo, and he tames these beasts who look at Ezra in a way I'm always trying to get my dog Darla to do with me. But she won't. The Fearnox occupy the Stormtroopers while the Grand Inquisitor fights Kanan, gives him the business. Ezra unsummons the Alpha Fearnox using some dark side of the Force powers. They manage to escape, but keep this in mind. Ezra's dark side affinity just becomes increasingly important throughout the series.
Yeah, because of his parents.
Giving us a bit of hope, restoring an image of Ezra with his parents. Episode 10, Path of the Jedi, another important one. Kanan brings Ezra to a hidden Jedi temple on Lothal after that dark side of the Force incident. The temple demands both
remember the episode.
Padawan open it together, but once they're inside, Ezra must face the challenges alone. In a way, he
I remember the episode.
To save his master. It's actually kind of similar to Luke Skywalker's cave quest in Empire Strikes Back, or Rey in that cave in Ahch-To in The Last Jedi. Like Luke and Rey, Ezra faces his worst fears and his insecurities. A vision of Kanan killed by the Inquisitor, and then the Ghost crew talking some major shit about him. The Inquisitor slaughters them too, but Ezra manages to snap himself out of it to make it through the first few challenges, and he hears Yoda's voice, once again voiced by Frank Oz.
Big fears have you faced, young one?
Who are you?
The guide.
He hasn't met Yoda yet.
Kanan's insecurities as a master, because it's as important to teach the master. Yoda is in exile on Dagobah at this point in history, so it's just kind of nice to hear that he mentally calls out to so many Jedi survivors scattered across the galaxy during this point in history. In the temple, we see etchings on the walls. These were actually inspired by Ralph McQuarrie's illustration in the illustrated Star Wars universe from 1995, and it seems like we'll learn more about these kinds of etchings in Ahsoka. Ezra acquires a Kyber crystal for his future lightsaber, and when Ezra asks Kanan if they should use the temple as a base, Kanan just says,
I know what's in there. The past.
The past, because he knows the Jedi already tried to use the Jedi Temple as a sanctuary. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant.
They got murked.
And Obi-Wan explained in his message the Jedi are now on a new path. They are homeless nomads. Episode 11, Idiots Array. It's the Lando episode. Billy D. Williams returns to voice the famous smuggler, beating Zeb in a game of sabacc, and winning Chopper.
Name's Calrissian. Lando Calrissian. Now please, introduce me to my new droid.
That mustache.
Is Idiot's Array. It's a winning hand in the game of sabacc. The rules of the game were detailed in the Lando novel from 1983. The crew joins Lando on a smuggling run, and they meet as Morrigan, voiced by the great James Hong, who recently appeared in Everything Everywhere All at Once. His design was inspired by an early Ralph McQuarrie design for Jabba the Hutt, actually.
I have what you ordered. What do you have to offer in return.
That's
Lando
a
offers
chin of a
Hera
chin right
to
there.
as Morrigan, but it's part of his supposed plan to get a puffer pig who can detect precious minerals and puffs up when it gets scared. Hera does manage to escape and makes it back to the Ghost, where she punches Lando for using her. The Ghost gets past the Imperial blockade and returns to Lothal, whereas Morrigan waits for them. There's a big shootout, and Ezra reveals his new lightsaber, but it's also a blaster gun. Which,
yeah.
Every lightsaber should have that functionality. They drive his Morgan off and they leave Lando behind with his piggy. Episode 12, Vision of Hope. So Ezra has a vision of Senator in exile Travis, including the crew helping Travis hide, and Travis mentioning Ezra's parents, which matches up with Travis's conveniently timed coded broadcast that he is actually headed to Lothal. So they think they must meet up with him. Ezra meets up with Zare, who says that Callus gathered troops at the old Senate building, and the rebels try to warn Travis that Callus is setting up a trap, but Callus and Tua are one step ahead of them with intel on all of the rebels. They escape into the sewers with Travis, who reveals himself to be an Imperial spy. Son of a bitch. He used those transmissions to smoke out rebel sympathizers. Senator B. Travis also tells Ezra that his parents are long dead.
Your parents were very
asshole
and very foolish. Where are they now? I'll tell you, my boy. They're gone!
Asshole. But
yeah, I know, right?
Asshole. Travis was sus, and she punched him after giving him a dud blaster. So they escape Callus and the stormtroopers, and Ezra, through the blades of that fan, throws one epic death stare back at Travis before he takes off. Episode 13, Call to Action. I would have stomped the Inquisitor, Antua, and Callus greet Grand Moff Tarkin on Lothal. So Tarkin asks why the rebels keep making gains. In Clone Wars, Tarkin was still just an admiral, but Bad Batch kind of shows them in that transition from then to now. Here we see him wearing armor similar to what General Veers wore in Empire Strikes Back. Travis outs the Ghost crew to the public with the reward for their capture, so they can't hide in plain sight anymore. Maybe you should change your armor, Sabine. And Kanan plans to send a message, hijacking the Imperial broadcast from the communication tower on Lothal. But Tarkin allows the Inquisitor to execute Oresco and Grint, Tarkin facing away from them, underlining this really is a message to Tua and Callus to get their shit together. Ezra finally connects to a Lothcat to clear a probe droid.
Damn Lothcats, man.
By the playback, the Inquisitor ambushes them at the tower, capturing Kanan. But Ezra manages to transmit an inspiring call to action.
Stand up together.
Because that's when we're strongest.
And although the tower gets blown up, the final seconds of this episode, and not with the theme music, but with this interesting fade out sound effect.
This isn't over.
No, it isn't.
Wow. That was in season 1, right?
Their radio message was still playing over Hera and Ezra's final exchange there. And that authentic uncertainty, that hot mic moment, also went out to inspire the people. Episode 14, Rebel Resolve. Fulcrum tells Hera,
"You must stop your search for Kanan and go into hiding."
Now, Fulcrum's voice is sounding more feminine, showing how they're getting closer to revealing her identity. Ahsoka Tano also had to forget about her Jedi Master and go into hiding after Order 66. They intercept the droid courier and swap it with Chopper, who infiltrates the Imperial systems and steals some info. Chopper pushes an astromech off the Ghost. Zeb's reaction here is just great, but that astromech survives. He just kind of trembles between two Lothcats. Still pretty mean for Chopper to do that. They read the file on Kanan, and it lists his past crimes, including theft of Imperial supplies, resisting arrest, assaulting officers, and piloting without a license. After some torture, Kanan is taken to Mustafar, current home to Darth Vader's castle, and Hera describes it as
that Mustafar is where Jedi go to die.
As it was here, where the Jedi Anakin was overtaken, killed, if you will, by the Sith Lord Vader. And episode 15, Fire Across the Galaxy, the season 1 finale, the Ghost crew steals an Imperial transport, and as it takes off, the smoke, exhaust, and dust forms the curved swooshes of the Rebel insignia. Nice touch there. The tie that Ezra and Zeb stole
the Lion King
comes back,
thing.
but Sabine has painted it, making it look as ridiculously flashy and dumb as, you know, a spy trying to
why
her Mandalorian armor that way. Whatever, the show's for kids. The Inquisitor knows that physical torture isn't working, so he's using Kanan's guilt over abandoning his master and the Jedi to try to break him.
Yeah, I think this is actually a kid's show. It's not made for adults.
Again,
it
is,
but
it
is
something we will actually see in the Bad Batch. It's a heartbreaking moment. The rebels
need to watch Bad Batch
detonators to disable Tarkin's Star Destroyer. Reinforcements are sent in though, so Chopper contacts Fulcrum, and every time we see her hood, I think back in 2014, I just remember thinking this is probably Leia, right? But the reveal of who it really is so much better. Ezra frees Kanan, and the Inquisitor is waiting for them both. The three of them duel with lightsabers. Kanan at one point using Ezra's, Ezra at one point using Kanan's. It's a 2-on-1 duel, evoking the climax of Phantom Menace. It's so great, and Ezra gets thrown off the bridge. Kanan thinks he's dead, and thinking he has nothing left to fear, he's able to beat back the Inquisitor, and the Inquisitor throws himself into the fire, leaving us with some chilling final words.
You have no idea what you've unleashed here today.
There are some things far more frightening than death.
Ah, and this one line, we sense the tortured life
Yeah.
that these Inquisitors lived when they were living under Vader and the Emperor. The rebels are saved by some Corellian cruisers with the hollow projection of Senator Bail Organa, and finally revealed the agent Fulcrum, who is not Leia Organa, but Ahsoka Tano.
Ahsoka.
So what happens now?
I don't know. One chapter has closed for you, Ezra Bridger. This is a new day, a new beginning.
Ahsoka Tano! In 2015, we had last seen Ahsoka in the Clone Wars series, Season 5, leaving Anakin behind. There were some unfinished storylines that were going to be released on Netflix, but it was so cool to see her again. Now, in 2020, Ahsoka's immediate aftermath of Clone Wars Season 5 was shown in Clone Wars Final Season, Season 7 on Disney+. Ahsoka's time in between would be explored in the 2016 E.K. Johnston novel, Ahsoka, part of which was adapted in an episode of Tales of the Jedi in 2022. But here, they've aged up Snips by 15 years. She's got longer snips. The stripes are stretched downward. Still voiced by Ashley Eckstein, though. Rosario Dawson plays her in live action now. Really, the character just keeps showing up at all different times in history.
Yeah.
As Season 1 began with Vader's face, so it ends, as Tarson tells Callus that the Emperor has sent an alternative solution. And whereas Episode 13 ended with the broadcast dying out over the title, now Episode 15 ends with this sound.
Ominous. Dun, dun. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I do remember Season 1 now.
It was fun, but it really just gets better from here. Season 2 will explore more of the Ghost Crew's backstories. But coming out of Season 1, I want to leave you guys with a cheat sheet of some need-to-know information.
All right, here we go. Cheat sheet, Mr. Eric Voss. School me, my man.
Watch episodes. You should watch all of them, but if you only have time for a few of them, watch these. Episode 5, Rise of the Old Master.
5.
Guess Episode 8, Empire Day, just because it's a really cool depiction of Imperial propaganda. And Episode 10, Path of the Jedi. Also, Lothal is one of the most important planets in Star Wars, as a place where the Empire built much of their hardware, and it contains a secret Jedi temple. Yoda instilled among these heroes complex master-apprentice relationships, and the teachers struggled just as much as the students do. Also, the Inquisitors lived tortured existences, and they're still out there. Also, Ahsoka Tano has worn many hats over the years: Jedi, Clone Wars warrior, Mandalorian liberator, farmer, spy, rebel, teacher, and now I guess some kind of monk. We're gonna talk a lot more about Ahsoka coming up. And lastly, Lothcats are awesome,
everywhere
are delicious, and Chopper's an asshole. Please subscribe to all 3 channels on the New Rockstars
Duly
Network.
noted, my friend.
Thank
you, Mr. Eric Voss, for that good breakdown of Season 1. Definitely gonna do Season 2. Like I said, I am slightly tiny above average Star Wars fan. I don't know all the details and all the backstories of every character, so this actually helps. So I'm getting prepared for Ahsoka. Excited about it. Let me know down below what you guys think. Are you gonna watch Ahsoka? But yeah, guess we'll see what Season 2 has for us, breakdowns for it. I believe I got into Season 2, but I didn't finish Season 2 of Rebels. I remember how far I got, maybe halfway. So once we get past that point, it's going to be new territory for me. But yeah, till next time, guys, I will see you in the next one. Peace.